Hey, you're listening to Rising into Mindful Motherhood. I'm your host, Dr. Katie Wood. I'm a barefoot mama bear, pharmacist, integrative fertility health coach, and lover of all things nature and animals. I'm on a mission to have intentional conversations about the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to fertility, pregnancy, postpartum, and beyond. My mindful guest and I will be talking about struggles, wins, natural wellness, and how we grow and transform as we enter motherhood. My background in healthcare has shown me how broken our medical system is. My own struggles to become pregnant has shown the lack of support for mamas to be, the lack of guidance for women to have a nourishing and vibrant pregnancy, the isolation, mom guilt, and all the things we hold after bringing baby earthside. I want this platform to be a place where women can feel connected, safe, and supported to share and hear their stories. A place to use our voice to discuss and advocate about what we need and deserve as mothers. So let's dive in, shall we? Hello and welcome to Rising into Mindful Motherhood. Today I'll be talking with Joanna. She is a biology and food science major turned fertility coach. She likes to help her clients by showing them how to support the body through diet, lifestyle, and mindset. And today we're going to be talking about cycle tracking and women's hormones. So welcome, Joanna. I'm so excited to have you here. And from the Canary Islands, nonetheless, you are on vacation.
Yes.
For taking the time to do this interview with me today.
Yeah, thanks for the great introduction, Katie. I'm excited to be here and chat together, and I hope that the information that we talk about today will be really useful for your listeners.
Absolutely. I would love to hear just a little bit more about you. It sounds like you like to travel and how you came to be a fertility coach from being a biology and a food science major.
Yeah, I've always been interested in food. So in university, I decided to study food science because I thought it was so interesting, the food industry, the types of products that can be created from all sorts of different ingredients. And I did really enjoy studying it. But then when I was working in the industry, I was working in a food microbiology lab. And I felt like the types of foods that the company I worked for was creating just weren't very health promoting foods. I I was eating them. It was things like hot dogs and luncheon meats and chicken nuggets and things like that because I didn't know that much about nutrition. And I could see as I was working there, my own health was changing, and it started making me just think a little bit more about what I'm eating. So I left that job, traveled, kind of tried to decide what I wanted to do, and then I studied holistic nutrition, and that was just a lot more in line with what I felt was the right way for me to be eating, and I could see the improvements in my own health just by kind of switching out just how I was eating. So that's kind of how I got into nutrition. Um, and I love it. And I think it's really amazing what diet and lifestyle changes can do for health. And I think it's a really interesting and rewarding career as well.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Kind of somewhat similar to me, coming from like the pharmacy background that's very Western medicine, very conventional, and just kind of taking a step back after doing it for a while and just really realizing like, I don't know that this is like really serving people and helping people to cultivate a level of health that's really the reason why, I got into healthcare and into pharmacy. So I can definitely relate. And I'm glad that you had that level of awareness that, hey, my health is changing while I'm working here and like eating these foods, because some people may not have that level of awareness, from working there. So I definitely love that. And so when did you decide to become a fertility health coach? Like, when did that happen for you?
When I was studying nutrition, we had a couple classes that really kind of just lit a light inside of me. One was nutrition through the lifespan. And kind of it was talking about the different nutritional needs as we're aging and all the different phases of life. And in that class, they were talking about how the health of the mother influences the health of the baby because what the mother is eating, of course, we know that, but how it can also impact the baby's life when they become an adult because of it's just creating the strong foundation for that child's life. So I thought that was really interesting. But when I graduated from nutrition school, most of the clients that I was getting, it was mostly around like weight loss or just general health, not so much fertility. So fertility nutrition has been more of a recent switch for me, recent focus, about the past 6 months or so. So it's been really rewarding because I can feel that the women and couples who are seeking this help, they're so great and so passionate, and they make really great clients because specific niche more than weight loss or other categories.
Mm-hmm. I love that you bring up the, what did you call it? The lifestyle phases or something like that in terms of the
Oh, nutrition through the lifespan. Yeah.
nutrition through the lifespan. Yes. So I can totally resonate with that. And that's a really big reason why, one of the things that I try to share with my community is it's not just about getting a positive pregnancy test. It's about, so much more than that. There's a really much bigger picture that a lot of times we can miss when we're on our fertility journey. And I can speak to that because I don't know if you're aware of this, but I struggled to get pregnant. And that's really what sparked my passion to become a coach. So a lot of times we can have this like tunnel vision where like it's like the end of the race is all we can see. So it's so much bigger than that because you're totally right. What the nutrition that mom starts at before pregnancy is really important because while you are pregnant, it's going to be very demanding. Baby's going to take what baby needs, and that could leave mom being depleted, which, we could get into a whole nother conversation on what that could look like. But I love that
Mm-hmm.
really inspired and resonated with you because I 110% agree. And that's another reason why I'm passionate about pregnancy health too, because you really can make such an impact, either positive or negative, on your baby's health and even their health as they're an adult. Depending on certain things, you could reduce their risk of like diabetes, asthma, things like that. So I definitely love that you brought that up.
Definitely. And I think also for maintaining a pregnancy too, like women, they try to get the pregnancy test, but then they either lose the pregnancy. And I think if they would have spent a little more time to prepare and really get their hormones in balance, then they'd have a higher chance of keeping the pregnancy as well.
Mm-hmm.
And also women I work with who are using fertility clinics. So they think, oh, well, I'm going to a fertility clinic, so I'm going to get pregnant. But there's no guarantee when working with the clinic. And also, you still need to prepare your body because you're still going to hopefully end up pregnant. So they're still missing that important piece with nutrition and lifestyle ahead of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up because that's a huge point. And I see that as well. And it's almost like this expectation that just because you are going to a fertility clinic that it's going to happen, but you're totally right. It's not guaranteed. And even the success rates are pretty low, and it typically involves like a lot of rounds of IUI, a lot of rounds of IVF. So one thing that I like to say is really, if you're going to make that type of investment, really taking the time, like you said, to work on your health to make sure that A, you can get pregnant, and then B, if you do get pregnant, you can sustain that pregnancy. So, yeah, that's a wonderful point that you bring up.
Mm-hmm.
So let's dive into your favorite ways to cycle track. So I know that this can be a really confusing point for women. It can be overwhelming. For me, when we started trying, I had been on birth control for 13 years. So I really didn't have any relationship with my menstrual cycle because it, technically the cycle I was on was artificial by the hormones from the birth control. So it was quite a learning curve. So I would love to hear how you support women in that way in terms of tracking their cycle and finding their fertile window.
Yeah, a lot of women have that same story of being on the pill for so long that they don't know what their own cycle is. So um, I haven't been on the birth control pill for many, many, many years. So I always kind of knew my cycle, but I wasn't tracking it in terms of cervical mucus or basal body temperature because um, I wasn't trying to get pregnant and I didn't just think much about it. But now that I'm more immersed in that and I've started to track the cervical mucus and basal body temperature, it's so interesting.
Mm-hmm,
And I think that every woman should be tracking their cycle, regardless if they want to get pregnant or not, because of what it can teach you about what's happening in your own body.
mm-hmm,
So I try to kind of come like teach women from that perspective of it's not just about getting pregnant, it's really like a little window into what's happening with you.
mm-hmm,
Um, and it can be really overwhelming, especially if a woman is just coming off of the pill and things are still kind of balancing out and there is no specific pattern yet. It can feel a little bit confusing because they're not seeing what they expect to see.
mm-hmm,
But I think, yeah, just the basic, just looking for two signs at the beginning, just the looking for the signs of the fertile cervical mucus and the basal body temperature is what I recommend to start with.
mm-hmm.
A lot of women try to also include the OPKs, the ovulation predictor kits, but I think it can be a little bit confusing and tedious and stressful
Mm-hmm.
that at the beginning it's just best to have a few cycles, at least 3 cycles, just with those two methods I mentioned. And then you can kind of fine tune it later once you become more comfortable.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's usually what I recommend for the women.
Yeah. I agree. And I think looking at our cycles, especially if you have been on birth control for some time, but looking at them with curiosity and just kind of, I don't know, looking at it almost like it is a bit of an experiment or just like this like learning phase of getting to know your body better. And I think it's really empowering too, when you do start seeing these signs and you can read these signs or symptoms that your body is telling you, because, looking at the different phases of the cycle, like I know for me during my luteal phase, like my energy is lower, and a lot of times like I
Mhm.
maybe don't want to be around a lot of people and things like that. And I think when you have that understanding of your cycle, it can help you on so many levels in your life, like whether you're trying to get pregnant or not. Being an entrepreneur and working from home, it's really good to know, like, hey, this is where I'm at in my cycle. Maybe I should take it a little bit easier this week. Or especially being on your fertility journey, like maybe you don't go to that party and you stay in and take care of yourself if your period does come. I just think that it can be such a beautiful tool that we have naturally. And it's really sad that a lot of us, we don't understand it because we weren't given the proper guidance when we were younger, and B, it's covered up, it's masked by
Mhm.
hormones and things like that, because it can be really empowering and just being able to understand your body and be able to make decisions based on where you're at too.
Definitely. And it's like perfect timing because I have a client who is just coming off of the Nuva ring. So I
Mm,
think for her, it's been about a month and a half maybe.
yeah.
And like the things that she's sharing with me, she's like, wow, like I can tell my libido is way higher. Like just she's feeling like what she should be feeling as a woman and knowing like, okay, that's probably because your body is about to ovulate. You're feeling a
Hmm.
little sexier and you have more energy. And so it made me so happy that she shared that with me because I can see like she's getting it and she's starting to really feel more like womanly, I guess.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
And our cycle is really like a health report card for women. So if you're not seeing that fertile cervical mucus, that could be, and you're like in a reproductive age, that could be a sign like maybe your estrogen is low or maybe something else is going on. If you're having a lot of fertile cervical mucus sporadically throughout your cycle, then maybe you have too much estrogen going on or PCOS or something like that. So
Mhm.
it's really important to be able to understand, read those signs, and just be able to know like what is going on. And for me, after I had my daughter, I refused to go back on birth control ever again because
Mhm.
I think realizing like what it really does to your body, and it can shrink your ovaries, it can affect your gut health, it can affect, certain nutrients, and really the nutrients that are so important for fertility, pregnancy. So it just kills me when doctors immediately recommend birth control to moms after they had a baby because they're already nutrient depleted. And, if you do follow like the family awareness method, like you could prevent pregnancy, but also achieve pregnancy in that way.
Yeah, exactly. I recently watched the documentary, The Business of Birth Control. I'm not sure if you watched it as well.
I have to, I've been told to watch it. I just
Yeah.
keep forgetting.
Yeah, so I've already kind of known the health risks associated with it.
Mhm.
That's why I haven't been on the birth control pill for many, many years. But
Yeah.
I hope that more women kind of see that there are alternatives out there that are reliable if you really tune in with your body and you don't need to be on hormonal birth control if you don't feel like you need to. Maybe some women like feel like that is their best choice, and that's great that that's available for them. But I think most women feel like, oh, I'm at the reproductive age. I don't want a baby, so I have to be on birth control. But
Hmm.
there are other options too.
Yeah. I was talking with someone the other day about how, for the majority of our lives, we try to just avoid getting pregnant for so long. And then it's like when we do want to and try to get pregnant, it's actually a lot harder than, society and maybe our parents or whoever made it appear. Your fertile window is about 6 days, not your entire cycle. So,
Hmm.
like you said, whether you're trying to achieve pregnancy or prevent it, there's definitely a lot of ways. There's a lot of alternatives to birth control.
Yeah, definitely.
So, just curious from another fertility coach's perspective, and so the listeners can know, what are your thoughts on like period or cycle tracking apps if you're trying to get pregnant?
I think it's a very useful tool. It's very convenient, but um, I don't recommend the apps that have that predictive function that it shows you the predictive fertile window
Mhm.
because it's not based on your actual body. It's kind of the algorithm of what it is for most women who
Mhm.
have like the perfect cycle. So I think there are ones cycle tracking apps out there that you just input your own data and then it's up to you to analyze it. And I think that kind of is better for the woman to understand more and not get distracted by what the app is telling her.
Mhm.
Um, like the first one that comes to mind is Kindara. Is you can just input your information and look at it from your own point of view.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so I think sometimes it can make women feel a little confused if they're seeing that predictive window and think, okay, I'm going to ovulate, but it's not actually their body's ovulating time. then they might be misled and could miss their own fertile window because of that.
Yeah, I agree. It's an estimation at best, and there's already so many, we typically would, if you have a healthy cycle, ovulate around the same time every month, but there are other outside influences that could change that. Like maybe if you just moved, or you have an exam or a big project for work, or you got sick, like there's a lot of things that could actually delay your ovulation. It happened to me a couple of months ago. I forget even why. Maybe it was because I was a little sick or something, but I didn't even ovulate until like day 19, and I wouldn't have known that if it wasn't for tracking like my basal body temperature. So
Yeah, that happens to me sometimes when I travel and it's like a big time zone change. My cycle gets thrown off because of that. So there's a lot of factors, and that's why it's important to really look at your own signs.
absolutely. Yeah. And I agree. I do I love the cervical mucus tracking because it's there, it's free. You don't have to pay for any cool gadget to track it. You could write it in a journal if you wanted to, or you could also track it in an app if that's easier for you. Basal body temperature, I love. I agree with you with OPKs. They can be stressful and they can also be confusing. I know for me, years ago when we were trying, I remember when I would get the positive, I would think like, oh, I ovulated, and I would wait to get that positive, but that doesn't mean that I ovulated. You know what I mean? So it can definitely be very confusing. And I think that that's one way that you and I can support our clients and being able to teach them the proper way of utilizing LH strips if they're warranted, for their specific cycle.
Definitely. Yeah,
So
because I think for clients, we want it to be easy for them. We don't want to make them feel more stressed and overwhelmed than they're already feeling.
exactly. Yeah, making it very simplified, streamlined, definitely. So let's dive in to hormones. So I would love to hear like your top 3 nutrition tips that would be really supportive of fertility hormones, hormone balance. Today's episode of Rising into Mindful Motherhood is proudly sponsored by the Confident Conception Membership. Are you or someone you know on what feels like a never-ending journey to motherhood, facing an uphill battle of fertility challenges? I'm Dr. Katie, your podcast host, pharmacist, and integrative fertility coach with over a decade of experience. I've been where you are, and I understand the roller coaster of emotions and heartache. That's why I've created the Confident Conception Membership, a program designed to help you address the real reasons behind fertility challenges. Like my client Elizabeth, who struggled with fertility for 9 years, having tried and failed other programs. She was in disbelief when just a couple of months into using my Confident Conception method, she finally got her first positive pregnancy test and welcomed her healthy baby boy this year. Using the Confident Conception method, we combine traditional medicine and energy healing to unlock your innate and abundant fertility potential. This isn't just about putting a Band-Aid on to cover up the physical symptom. It's about healing the energetic and physical root causes. As a member, you'll receive personalized guidance, bi-weekly live coaching calls, and become a part of a supportive community of like-minded women who truly understand what you're going through. We offer flexible payment options, plus our annual members receive exclusive savings and bonuses to accelerate their path to pregnancy. Don't let another month of frustration and overwhelm pass you by. As a special offer to our listeners, you can use the promo code PODCAST10 to receive 10% off the lifetime of your membership. Secure your spot now and expedite your journey to motherhood today by visiting www.youремpoweredfertility.com/membership to learn more and enroll. Together, we'll pave the way to your confident conception for a future filled with joy, unconditional love, and the pitter-patter of tiny feet. The link is in the show notes. Sign up today and your future self will thank you.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things that I recommend for women is to be eating 3 meals a day, like not skipping meals and making sure you have protein with every meal because our proteins are made up of, our hormones are made up out of proteins and fats. So we need to be eating that in our diet if we want to have healthy hormones. Personally, I think that animal proteins are a really the superior option over plant proteins just because of their bioavailability and they're just more nutrient dense and just easier to digest and consume. Yeah, so that's tip number one is having protein with every meal. I think also managing stress levels. A lot of women don't understand how all of the hormones they're all interconnected. So if one is elevated, it's going to have an effect on the other hormones. So with stress and cortisol, it can affect progesterone levels. So you want to make sure to manage stress the best you can. I know it's not easy. And the third tip would be to have like a good like for lifestyle, having good products in the sense of low toxin kind of products. It doesn't necessarily need to be organics. I know organic is a little bit difficult to access sometimes, but with our beauty products, cleaning products, trying to reduce our exposure to these kind of chemicals that can disrupt our hormone balance is really important for when you're trying to get pregnant and of course when you're pregnant as well. So that would be my three tips: the protein, the stress, and endocrine disrupting chemicals in the environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that those are all very important. And I also agree that protein is extremely at the top of necessity. And I do think that animal protein is also more ideal because of the bioavailability. They are very nutrient dense. Of course, trying to source the highest quality that you can, that can be easier said than done. But yeah, and if you think about it too, this just kind of like came to my mind. I know with like a lot of different plant foods and plant proteins, like if it's not cooked or if it's not soaked, it can actually have like anti-nutrients in them, which can block the absorption of other nutrients, which are also important. And I am not aware of animal proteins having that issue at all. Like all of the nutrients that are in, say, like an egg or something like that, they all, or like fish is coming to my mind. I don't know, have you ever read Lily Nichols' book, Real Food for Pregnancy?
I have not read that, but it sounds
Oh
like
my
a great
gosh,
book.
you absolutely have to. So
Yeah.
I'm probably going to say this wrong because I'm probably not going to remember correctly, but I remember her talking about like you would rather eat like wild caught salmon versus maybe supplementing with like iodine because the salmon has like the selenium and the iodine and they work in like synchronicity together. There is something about like one helps, I can't remember, but that's just how whole foods are. Like it's just made in perfect unison and they will work together, and they don't compete each other with animal proteins. I don't know if you know of any different, but I'm not aware of like any anti-nutrients or things like that that can occur with animal protein.
No, I'm not aware either. I think the only thing that some people have a concern about is maybe like mercury in the fish, but there are low mercury fish options, like the smaller fish. Salmon is one, and sardines, anchovies. So it's a way to still get fish and have a lesser exposure to mercury. Um, yeah, and with the vegetable proteins like the phytic acid if you're not soaking it properly or cooking it properly, which it really is time consuming. I think most people don't have time to be soaking and sprouting their beans before cooking them. So it can be harder to achieve that optimal diet with vegetarian diet. And also for me, I tried many years ago to be a vegetarian and it was really hard on my digestive system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And also vitamin B12, like you're really only going to get that from animal foods for the most part to be able to get you to the optimal level that you would want to be without having to supplement.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. So I know you mentioned you like to help clients with their mindset. So this is like a huge favorite of mine as well. So I would love to just know or talk about what your like maybe top 3 techniques are that, different strategies that you share with your clients to really help support them on the emotional, spiritual journey that really is trying to conceive.
Yeah, it's really difficult because everyone has like they could have a different kind of struggle or a different way that they like to focus on mindset. Some people love journaling, some people love meditation, some people love long walks in nature. So it needs to be specific to what the client enjoys. But
Mm-hmm.
I think a big one for mindset and mental health is stepping away from the phone and social media because if you're seeing, oh, my friend just had a baby or so and so is pregnant and you're seeing all of this when you're really in a vulnerable place, it can make you feel worse. So I recommend like no screen time after dinner, like do things that bring you joy that don't involve a screen, something creative, something artistic, dance, movement, something like that is really it's going to be just so beneficial and also help with stress levels.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's another tip I recommend. Just connecting more with people in person, having a games night with friends, like
Mm-hmm.
going for a long walk with your partner and having a conversation, like that feels good for the mind as well. And you feel more present in your life. So you're not kind of thinking about the future or the problems that might happen or the stress. And those kind of activities are really fun and joyful, but we tend to kind of forget about them sometimes. So I think I try to remind clients about those wonderful things we can do that are free most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And
Yeah. What about you? What do you recommend?
well, so to kind of mirror what your first one was, I made a Instagram post on this relatively recently about like this one thing that you shouldn't do on your fertility journey, and that's being a part of a lot of different fertility groups because I'm in a lot of them and I see what people are posting. They are also
Mm.
people who are on their fertility journey, but it's a lot of negativity, victim mentality. And I try to empower my clients and my community. It is important to feel those feelings, and you should recognize them, acknowledge them. But what I notice is when someone makes a post like that in a group, and then I know how the mind works when you're on your fertility journey. You're just sitting and reading. You're reading all of these comments, and like 99% of them are in a very negative mindset, negative mentality. And I think to also speak to maybe seeing a lot of pregnancy announcement posts, that reading a lot of these negative perspectives can be very, very draining on your energy. And it's going to
Mm.
lower your overall frequency, your overall vibration. It's going to put you in a frequency of potentially shame, guilt, fear. And this is not what we want for our bodies as we're trying to conceive. So I think that being in a supportive group where it's not just about talking about all the negative things. Like it's more motivational, more inspirational, like fertility affirmations, things like that to then help shift the mindset. So feel the feeling, but then also shift it. So then you can move forward, but be in a much more positive like energy, if that makes sense. I don't know if
Totally.
have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think affirmations are really important too, because when you keep thinking the thought over and over and over again, then it becomes your belief.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, more positive things will come from that. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, and I love meditation, visualization for sure. And like you said, everyone may resonate with one thing over another. Journaling, if that feels good, especially gratitude journaling, I
Hmm.
think can be really impactful. Being grateful for what you have around you, even if you had a bad day and the only thing you can think of is I have water, I have electricity, I have food. I mean, that's okay because those are all things to be grateful for. And I think when you have that level of gratitude, that's also going to raise your vibration and just have yourself in a better energetic space. I have two other book recommendations if you have not read them. So there's Spiritual Fertility and also The Energetic Fertility Method. They're both amazing books and they really kind of talk about a lot of these different mindset modalities, things like that, and just kind of having your body feel safe is super important too. So cultivating safety is another big one for me.
Oh, I love that. I'll definitely check out the books.
Yeah,
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 I like the what you said about cultivating safety in the body, because I think if your body feels safe, then
yeah,
it will be more welcoming to a new life because it's
exactly,
ready for it. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. For me, the mindset work is a huge part of the equation at this point because I think once you get the nutrition down, you get your supplements down and you tweak your lifestyle habits, it's kind of like the next big part is like you really need to tackle the mindset and your stress and your overall like energetic body. I think it's a really big piece of the equation.
Definitely. And one that gets overlooked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're not going to talk to you about that at your reproductive specialist appointment, that's for sure.
No, definitely not.
So you had mentioned that you have a freebie for the audience, 5 actions to start now to boost pregnancy chances. I'd love for you to share a little bit about that with the audience.
Yeah, so it's just a guide that kind of talks about a lot of what we talked about today about diet, lifestyle, mindset, and some things that you can be doing to help get you on the right track for your fertility journey.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, just guiding you on where to get started so that you are setting yourself up for success.
Awesome. Awesome. So the link for that will be in the show notes. And one thing that we were talking briefly about before we started recording was thoughts on clomid and letrozole and maybe what my perspective as a pharmacist is on those two things. So I do think that there is always a time and a place for certain things. But I also think that, like a lot of medications, these are overly prescribed. We're too quick to prescribe them because, in
Mhm.
my mind, if we're not ovulating, why? There's
Right.
there's got to be an underlying cause. What is that cause? Is it our progesterone levels are off? Is it our thyroid is off? Are our hormones out of balance? And my concern is when we force the body to do something that it wasn't doing on its own, um, if that depending on what that underlying cause is, will it be a healthy, sustainable pregnancy at the end of the day? So that's a concern. Not to say, I mean, a lot of people have used clomid and letrozole and they have had a healthy pregnancy. So
Mhm.
not to say that that can't happen, but and then also to think, all right, let's say mom does get pregnant, she has the baby, but whatever was going on before she did the clomid or the letrozole is most likely still there. So if we haven't resolved that root cause, and if mom wants to have more children, you may have struggles again along the line. So I think at the end of the day, it's a band-aid that
Mhm.
potentially could work. And I think it's amazing if it was able to get someone pregnant and bring a baby into their life. I do think that medical advances and medications and things like that can be super useful, but in my mind, I'm just really hesitant and kind of like, well, maybe if you took some time to work on nutrition, lifestyle, things like that, you wouldn't have to go down that road.
Right. Yeah. I was thinking the same thing, but so many women I come to
Yeah.
are on or who come to me are on these medications. So I was like, sometimes they're not my client yet, so I don't have enough background information about them. So I was just wondering, like, wow, it's really commonly used. And one woman I was actually just speaking with her today, she said she was on it for 6 months on
Mm,
letrozole. And so I was wondering, like, that seems like a long time for me
yep.
for her to be on that.
hmm So that's actually, you just made me think of another really good point. So yeah, if you're on Clomid for 6 months, let's just step back and look at the bigger picture. What is that then doing to your hormones and to your body, on top of whatever else was potentially happening before you use that medication? So I think that that's another concern that I would have, because I think depending on maybe your age and things like that, that's how long they'll let you try it. And I did a webinar, so I'm going to be pulling these percentages from my
Mhm.
mind, but I want to say that like Clomid was around 19% like success rate, and letrozole was maybe like in the 20 percentage, somewhere around there. Um, Something like that. So it's not extremely high. And then I think like the rate of like successful ovulation was maybe like 30%, and then it was like pregnancy was under 30%, and then live birth was even lower. So then that just goes to show that
Wow.
between the pregnancy, like there are obviously some losses between there, and that also, even if it does make you ovulate, pregnancy is not guaranteed. And I've had a lot of women share with me, I don't know about you, that the side effects were just awful. I know some women can tolerate better than others, but just absolutely awful. Like they didn't feel themselves like themselves. They had a lot of, rage, mood issues, and just not feeling very good.
Yeah, and then for it not to be successful, that's a lot to put the body through.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times I'll see if that doesn't work, and then it's like you go to IUI, and then you try X amount of IUI attempts, and then
Hmm.
IVF. And I think what really breaks my heart is doctors just are jumping to the next thing, and it's never about taking a step back and looking at like the basics, like what's your nutrition like, what's your lifestyle like, um what's your environment like, I don't know, do you have a stressful job? Do you have, and I mean, this is kind of an extreme case, but do you have an abusive relationship where maybe your body doesn't feel safe? And not necessarily with the spouse. I mean, there's a lot of different relationships that can be verbally abusive, physically abusive. There's just so many things that could go into it. And I think with Western medicine, it's just like, oh, it's just like a checklist of things that you can progress down, but never really taking care of the foundation at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think a lot of women feel like if they've been struggling to conceive for a while, that there's something wrong with them. And now pregnancy is like not in their control and they need to go for the medical treatment or intervention, which is a shame because they probably weren't informed about the things that they could do to help improve their chances naturally. And that they just don't know about it because they're not being told that by their doctor. And in school, we weren't really taught that much about how our bodies work. So most of us don't know. And I think it's important the work that we do because we're kind of filling in that gap and letting women know that there are more things you can try before you take those more invasive treatments, if that's what you want to do. So I think it's important that women know that they do have choices and there are a lot of things that they can control.
I agree. And that's why you and I do what we do, so we can fill in those gaps for sure. So I would love for you to share where the audience could learn more about you and maybe connect with you as well.
Yeah, my Instagram and all my social media is at Wellness by Joanna. And I have a Facebook group where I share a lot of videos, tips, recipes, things like that. And it's a really positive community. And it is called Preparing Your Body for Pregnancy. And it's just on Facebook. And yeah, those are the best places to reach me because that's where I am most active.
Awesome. Awesome. Love it. Do you have any final words for the listeners?
Just to not give up on your fertility journey. If you feel like you're struggling and not getting anywhere, then finding a supportive community, finding a practitioner who can really help you with more individualized support is really beneficial. And yeah, keeping your mindset positive. And I hope that everyone gets the baby of their dreams.
Love it. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your passion with us today, Joanna.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It was a wonderful chat.
It was. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Rising into Mindful Motherhood podcast. If this episode resonated with you or gave you an aha moment, stop what you're doing right now and write a review. This simple act of kindness helps me get this podcast out to connect with as many women as I possibly can. I also have a special offer. If you send me a screenshot of your review, I will take $250 off one of my premium coaching containers. Let me know what resonated with you the most and why. So connect with me in my free Facebook community or tag me on Instagram. You'll find both listed below. Thanks again from the bottom of my heart for tuning in to this episode, and I'll see you next time.